It began in love. That's how Mary Oliver imagines the Big Bang. That mystery spark before everything else, that nanosecond or less before anything else happened. That ignition so distant, so beyond, it can only be imagined. It began in love. How else? Why else? What else? So I imagine, she writes, such love of the world, its fervency, its shining, its innocence and hunger to give of itself. I imagine that is how it began. And that's how we begin today. My name's Cameron Miller, and this is Trinity Place. Welcome back, or for the first time. This is the 6th Sunday of Easter season. Now, it must have exploded with love, so passionate, it was impossible even for God to contain it. Boom! Mary Oliver's poetic, even theological imagination about the Big Bang conceived in love is not really so different than the less poetic but still imaginative speculation of science. 13.8 billion years ago, one scientist has written, our entire observable universe was the size of a peach and had a temperature of over 1 trillion degrees. Paul Sutter from Life Science. But both notions, the spontaneous explosion of the peach or the fervency of God's hungry love, both are wonderfully imaginative. The mystery spark is all we know, all we can imagine, whether wrapped in poetry, in theology, or in astrophysics. Now, in my own darker moments, I have wondered if the cosmos was the result of an indiscreet moment of passion by the God of all that is. Was it a pregnancy and a birth ignited in an indescribable otherworldly climax resulting in an unwanted, unruly bipolar creation? Was that how we got to be what we are? But then the red-winged blackbird trills its unmistakable song from a nearby adolescent poplar, whose arms are raised up in praise and covered with small green buds. But then one of last year's Easter morning hyacinths we took home and planted in the yard pokes its beautiful head and blue petals up through our really rocky, poor soil. But then, just when I think this cosmos and certainly the human-encrusted earth is a mistake, a love child, not truly loved, then someone I know reaches out to touch somebody else who I know they do not love. But still they willingly act in love, with love, to serve or help or heal them. Because there is so much evidence that love the world, its fervency, its shining, its innocence and hunger to give of itself, I can only imagine it began in love. I am going to go out on a limb here. Imagine that. I'm going to go out on a limb here. We live in a highly psychologized culture. And by that I mean our thinking about how and why we are the way we are has been very broadly influenced by psychology. And just like astrophysics both speculates and creates educated models or guesses for the Big Bang, psychology is an art as much, if not more, than a science. We need to use it and appreciate it, but not give it more authority to shape the truth than other things. Just like Mary Oliver offers a poetic, even theological imagination for the creation born of love, I want to use theology the same way. I want to theologize about something that matters. Like this. When we're weary and we need to rest in God's love and let flow love for ourselves as well as for those around us. It's how creation was born, and so it's also how we heal. That makes sense, right? A creation born in love with creatures, the byproduct of that love, must surely also need love for healing in order to heal. And so those images from my darker moments and other brands of hopelessness could be attributed to depression or grief, anger, and powerlessness, all of which seem right in the face of personal losses and societal and political craziness and environmental degradation and impending catastrophes. But are these chemical imbalances in my brain due to sociological or psychological reasons or behavioral dynamics? Perhaps. But that's not exactly how I would frame them theologically. Rather, weariness comes from living our lives embedded in the pretense that we're self-made people. Our weariness comes from forgetting that we are a branch on the vine and not some autonomous agent. Weariness comes from imagining there is a scarcity of love, that love is a zero-sum game whereby if someone gets loved, somebody else gets loved, I'll get less love. And therefore, I must be better and more worthy of love than the competition. Weariness comes from imagining that the fruit I am supposed to bear somehow involves or resembles economic power, whether it's my own production capacity or even how much money I give to charity. Weariness comes from presuming the fruit that glorifies God is scarce instead of abundant. You see, if we live with a script about the scarcity of love, that we have to search for it, that we have to work for it, that we have to earn it, all the while in danger of losing it, well, that script is exhausting and full of anxiety. Enter Jesus. As always, we have to acknowledge that the author of John's Gospel does weird things to Jesus, even while holding a nub of sacred wisdom up for us to receive. And in this case, John, the Gospel of John, the author of the Gospel of John, turns a quite beautiful theological imagination into a highly conditional commandment. But I'm going to ignore all that part and suggest that what Jesus offers us here is not a commandment, and certainly not an either-or condition. Rather, what Jesus offers us is a script for living life more abundantly. Now, we often think about reality, our personal reality, we do not often think of our personal reality as living out a script, and yet that's exactly what we do. We have plenty of other scripts we have either been given or written for ourselves. What Jesus offers us here is a different script and invites us to make it our own script. And what my theological imagination leads me to understand is that it is when I am living out these other scripts to the exclusion of the one our sacred wisdom offers, that's when I get weary or anxious or cynical even. There's a market economics script in which we are agents of relentless consumerism. There's a tribal script in which ethnicity, race, religion, or politics defines purity and acceptability, even lovability. There's a gender and sexuality script in which our chromosomes and genes fate us into predictable and prescribed ways of thinking, behaving, and loving. There's an autonomous, self-made individual script in which our neighbors and our colleagues are fundamentally our competitors, and we have no one to credit or thank for what we have or have become because we're free agents. We did it all ourselves. There are hundreds of other scripts, thousands, maybe millions. Some good, some bad, some even evil. But the point is, we've all been given numerous scripts from day one, and they wear us down and wound us and exhaust our hope. But our script, our theological script, is radically different. This theological script is an invitation to abide in God's love. And that right there should make us laugh. Laugh out loud with joy. Our script tells us, and even gives us a way of acting it out, that the creator of all that is actually wants its own joy to be in us, so that our joy might be complete. The creator of all that is wants its joy to be in us, so that our joy can be complete. Imagine that kind of love. We actually know that kind of love. That's the love that explodes within us when we want our joy to be in another person because we just love them so much. We love them so much, we want them to have our joy. You've experienced that before, I'm sure. This is my commandment, that you love one another as I have loved you. So what my theological imagination tells me is that in those moments I can no longer see or feel or know in my bones the beauty of the earth, the strange, fearsome magnificence of the cosmos, teeming with light and dark and colors and noise. When none of that infuses me with amazement or touches me with joy or straightens my bent over shoulders or turns my pouting fish lips into a smile or a laugh, one of those other scripts is what I'm living out. And the crazy, nearly insane thing about living out an alien script is that it's our choice. We have slipped into the wrong script without even knowing it, but once we realize it, if we don't change the script, then it's on us. We get to choose. And boy, I would much rather live out a script with the kind of joy and wonder in Mary Oliver's poem than some conditional dog-eat-dog, there's not enough script that is laying around in our mental bookshelf somewhere. We get to choose. And by the way, all of this is how theology works. I wish you the holiness of peace.